Hey guys, so for today's video we are looking at the Chrysler 300M. Sorry about the later upload. I know I had promised this video earlier in the week, but it just took me way longer than I thought and I had some other things to do as well. But for these types of videos, I look at the history of the car, major flaws, and why it got cancelled. I'm slowly making my way through most of the Mopar cars, as you probably know. Probably done about 15 or 20 of them by now, so check that playlist out in the top right corner if you want more of these videos. Also, if you do have an idea for another car, leave a comment below and I'll add it to my upcoming video list. I saw a lot of people ask about the Chrysler 300M over the past year, so here we go. So in these videos, the first part focuses on looking back at the history of the car, and then we jump to talking about the events that led to the car being cancelled and any flaws that it had. So the 300M was launched for the 1999 model year, and it was a front-wheel drive, full-size, luxury sports touring sedan that was produced until 2004. It shared the Chrysler LH platform with vehicles such as the Chrysler Concorde, Chrysler LHS, and Dodge Intrepid. The LH vehicles got a redesign in 1998, and at the time, Chrysler had big plans for a redesigned Eagle Vision to compete with other imported luxury sedans. However, Chrysler made the decision to stop production of the Vision in September of 1997, and then they chose to discontinue the entire Eagle brand at the end of the 1998 model year. So instead of an updated Eagle Vision, Chrysler chose to bring back the 300 nameplate with this 300M instead. The 300M followed suit as the next letter in the 300 letter series, as Chrysler had already released a 300, counting the alphabet A through L from 1955 through 1965. There had been plans for a 300M that never materialized in 1966, but 33 years later, that M was back for 1999 as a contemporary interpretation of those historic cars. Many people were a little bit critical of this move, as while it was great that Chrysler was paying homage to their own history, this 300 was not rear-wheel drive, not special production, it didn't have the 300 horsepower V8 engines, nor did it have the traditional crosshair grille, which was now found on Dodge. For the most part, there was just one trim level of the 300M each year, unlike most of the other Chrysler products, and then you could add options on top of that. The cost was $28,950 in 1999, and that rose up slowly to $29,185 over time by 2004, making this a mid-level luxury vehicle. For comparison, if we account for inflation, that's around $46,500 for the 1999 version, and that dropped to about $41,000 by 2004. So that's about as expensive as the top-of-the-line 300C trim in 2020, which had an MSRP of $41,995 US. Due to the pretty high price tag and one trim level, each 300M was almost fully loaded, aside from a few options that Chrysler figured some customers wouldn't want. The extra paid options varied over time, but generally they included a moonroof, chrome wheels with full-size spare, side impact airbags, premium 360-watt stereo system with a 4-disc changer and 11 infinity speakers, and later 6 discs in 2003, and a performance handling group, which we'll get into later. There was also the special edition for the last 3 years, 2002 to 2004. This version was roughly $4,000 more than the regular 300M, coming in at around $32,500, which would be around $46,000 to $48,000 today if we account for inflation. The special edition got a higher output version of the engine, suspension upgrades, as well as 18-inch wheels, but we'll talk all about the performance specs later on in the video. Chrysler does claim that 1/3 of all 300M sales were the special. Finally, to round out the other limited variations of this car, there was a 2002 and 2003 Pro-Am model, which included an Infinity audio system, two-toned leather interiors, and a set of limited edition golf clubs and a holder for the golf bag in the trunk. In 2004, Chrysler would offer the Platinum series across 6 different Chrysler vehicles, and you can find those features on screen. This was basically the 300M with slightly more premium stuff. As for the exterior, the 300M was 10 inches shorter than the LHS, with an overall length of 197.8 inches. Part of the reason for that is that Chrysler wanted to export the 300M to 30 different international markets, like Germany, Spain, Switzerland, Sweden, and Brazil. Keeping the length around 5 meters allowed it to fit the European 5-meter size class for exports, and it made it more attractive for those European customers, considering they have much smaller parking garages and spaces. The 300M does share the doors and roof with the LHS, but they were designed differently to appeal to different customers. The wheelbase is also the same as the other second-generation LH cars, around 113 inches. The reductions in length would come from shorter overhangs. The car also featured a high rear deck, bigger taillights, and a more aggressive front end. Moving on inside, it was a functional but also very nice place to be, and it just wasn't as cheap feeling as some of the other early 2000s Chrysler interiors. The dash flows nicely side to side, and while the interior is similar to the LHS and Concorde, there are some more luxurious improvements. There's also more headroom than the LHS, but less legroom. It also doesn't have the massive trunk space of the Concorde, as it's a bit shorter. All of the surfaces used are soft to touch, despite some of them being plastic, and those heated leather front seats with memory controls come standard in all the 300Ms. The analog gauges are white-faced with a chrome bezel, and there's an analog clock in the center of the dash, both very elegant touches. The steering wheel was finished in wood with some steering wheel controls. The stock sound system used was an Infinity 1 system with 7 speakers and 240-watt amp, but as we mentioned, you could upgrade to 9 and later 11 speakers and a CD changer. 2000 saw some small interior changes like the addition of rear cup holders, as well as the offering of a 4-disc CD changer, chrome-colored power window and door lock switches, and color-keyed mirror switches. Some of the standard safety features here included front airbags, child protection door locks, ABS, traction control, and an anti-theft system. Now we can shift over to performance. Only one engine was available for the North American market, the EGG high-output 3.5-liter V6. The 3.5-liter debuted in 1993, which was essentially a version of the 3.3-liter V6 with a larger bore and addition of overhead cams. In 1998, the engine would get revamped with an all-aluminum block and a big increase in horsepower among other improvements. That would deliver an 18% increase in power over the previous cast-iron 3.5, and while mid-grade 89-octane gas was recommended for the best performance, the engine would run fine on 87-octane as well. With all that in mind, the 300M engine still met the low-emissions vehicle standards at this time. This engine was shared with many other vehicles like the Plymouth Prowler, Dodge Intrepid RT, Chrysler LHS, as well as the Concorde. In the 300M from 1999 to 2001, it was rated for 253 horsepower and 255 pound-feet of torque, and that was paired with the 42LE 4-speed automatic transmission with auto stick, allowing for drivers to manually select the gears. While it's not an extremely quick car, the horsepower and performance were respectable at the time compared to other V6s in this price range. 0 to 60 times were 7.8 seconds, with a quarter-mile time of 16 seconds, and top speed is limited to around 130 miles per hour. One other note, the European 300Ms got the 2.7-liter V6 standard instead, with 190 horsepower and 190 pound-feet of torque. We mentioned it earlier, but now is the time to cover the 300M Special more in depth. The Special was available from 2002 to 2004, and there was an upgraded EGK 3.5-liter engine specially tuned exclusively for this model. It received a small bump up in power to 255 horsepower and 258 pound-feet of torque, while it appears that Chrysler interestingly decreased the power ratings of the original EGG 3.5-liter V6 down to 250 horsepower and torque, and I presume they did this to make the Special engine appear that much better to customers. In reality, it's only slightly better. Chrysler recommended to run this engine on premium 91-octane gas. The Special numbers did improve on paper, as Chrysler claimed a 0 to 60 of 7.2 seconds and a quarter mile of 15.4 seconds. As for some other performance specs, the regular 300 shared its suspension with the Chrysler LHS with more aggressive tuning. 4-wheel anti-lock disc brakes with ABS and electronic traction control helped to improve the stopping power and reduce the noise and vibration. P225 55 R17 Goodyear Eagle LS touring tires were standard. Overall, the 300M was smooth for cruising, stable at high speeds, with direct and responsive steering. In other words, it was a nice driver's car, and it didn't isolate you too much from the road. However, it wouldn't reduce the noise and road vibration to Lexus or BMW levels. The Special got a performance dual exhaust, stiffer suspension, firmer struts, stiffer brake calipers, vented rotors, and a firmer steering gear, along with larger and wider 18-inch wheels, with two 45/45 ZR18 Michelin Pilot Sport tires. Considering the price increase of about $3,000 to $4,000 over the regular 300M, this package was definitely a steal considering what you got. Note that there was an optional handling package of between $500 to $600 that added some of these features as well, aside from the improved engine, and European models would also receive this optional handling package as standard equipment. Just before we get to the next part of the video, we can go over some extra information, and that would be some year-over-year changes. So late in the 1999 model, automatic headlights were added, and the handling group removed the speed limiter. 2000 saw some other minor changes. 2001 added a luxury group package, more advanced computer system, and new jeweled headlights. 2002 added that 300M Special and Pro-Am models that we talked about. 2003 added some new colors, the 6-disc CD changer, and two-tone leather interiors. And the final year in 2004 would add some optional Sirius satellite radio and the Chrysler Platinum Series model. The production LH platform, which lasted 12 years and 2 generations, was slated for a third, but the Daimler-Chrysler merger stopped any further development on the LH in favor of the rear-wheel drive and all-wheel drive LX platform. Chrysler never went on to build a production LH platform car in any other configuration than front-wheel drive. However, they did build 2 rear-wheel drive V8 concept cars on this platform, the 1999 Dodge Charger RT and the 2000 Chrysler 300M EC. So overall, here with the 300M, Chrysler had produced a car that was fun to drive, with good performance and handling for its size, along with a stylish exterior and elegant interior, all for a very fair price. So that'll bring us to the next part of the video, looking at the reasoning for the cancellation and the flaws of the 300M. I've come up with 6 different reasons and or flaws that refer to the car, or Chrysler decision making and decision executions. So let's look at those reasons now. The main reason for the cancellation was because Chrysler had developed the LX platform to supersede the LH platform, and by 2004 they had decided the time had come to release the new stuff for the 2005 model year. Again, Daimler-Chrysler didn't want to continue using the LH platform, so Dodge sent a team of engineers to Germany to study the upcoming Mercedes E-Class for help with engineering suspension and chassis components, and use the LX platform. That platform would be Chrysler's full-size rear-wheel drive platform, used for the 2005 to 2010 Chrysler 300, 2005 to 2008 Dodge Magnum, and 2006 to 2010 Dodge Charger. A shortened version of the platform was called the LC, and that got used for the Challenger when it came out in 2008. The LH sedans had been out for 12 years, they were getting outdated, and it was time for a new flagship vehicle from Chrysler. The 2005 300 was perfect for the job, offering 4 different V6 and V8 engines, 2 transmissions, rear-wheel drive and all-wheel drive, and several trim levels, all while maintaining that large luxury sports sedan look and feel. I also think another factor that ties into the first one was that there were simply too many LH Chrysler models for customers to choose from, and things could get confusing for customers and salespeople, as the vehicles were all very similarly priced and designed. The second generation alone had the Chrysler Concorde, LHS, and 300M all falling under the same brand name. They were literally all large 4-door sedans with the exact same chassis and wheelbase. It didn't make much sense to continue this method of selling 3 of the exact same types of vehicles as Chryslers. 2005 to 2010 saw the strategy shift a bit. Chrysler still had 3 to 4 vehicles on that newer LX platform, but one was the luxury sedan 300, one was the muscular sports sedan Dodge Charger, the Magnum was in wagon form, and the Challenger was later added as a coupe variant. Distinguishing each vehicle better made it easier to sell them to different groups of people, and have customers better realize the value that each vehicle provided. Looking at reason number 3, if we look at the sales figures, they were never really that strong for any of the second-gen LH Chryslers. Each model pretty much hovered around 50,000 units per year. The cab-forward design had been revolutionary in 1993, but by 2004 and 12 model years later, it had become out of date and found everywhere, and not that many people wanted them. Now, the rest of the flaws are not solely responsible for the cancellation in any way, but they are just some problem areas or annoyances with the car, and of course we cover those here in this flaws section. So one of the major flaws of the 300 was that it suffered from some electrical problems. While none of these are exactly catastrophic, these types of issues are very annoying and can be a pain to locate the problem area, and most people will have to replace the body control module, or BCM. According to carcomplaints.com, electrical issues were the second most prevalent type of problem reported according to owners. Some of the documented issues were random flashing of interior dash lights, headlights and horn intermittently turning on and off, automatic door locks squeaking, grinding, and getting stuck when electronically activated, alarm systems going off randomly, battery systems draining overnight, different fuses blowing out, taking out the dash and taillights, and the moonroof stuck open. These are not isolated incidents, so it seems that the 300 was plagued with these electrical issues. Also related to the electrical side of things, the automatic temperature control, or ATC unit, can be a nightmare, displaying error codes, blowing hot or cold air randomly, or failing to communicate with the vehicle, requiring an expensive repair. Another really frustrating issue is the dashboards literally cracking and developing long cracks in various areas. For a luxury car, this is certainly not expected and looks horrible, and it isn't the fault of anyone but the manufacturer and the parts used. You simply don't buy a car expecting the dashboard to crack on you. Now, the next flaw pertains to the 3.5-liter V6 engines, and there's a bunch of them grouped here together. These engines were introduced in 1993 as an upgrade from the earlier 3.3-liter pushrod V6. However, these earlier 3.5s had a poor reputation for reliability. Some will blame the owners for not properly maintaining their engines, and others will blame the design itself. Either way, they are plagued with lubrication issues, oil sludging, coolant leaks, overheating, and low mileage engine failures. Regardless of your opinion on this engine or how good or bad it might be, it's simply one that requires more frequent maintenance to stay in healthy shape. So the first flaw that we'll discuss in depth here is the use of a timing belt, which Chrysler chose as it was cheaper than a timing chain. The early 1993 to 1997 3.5-liter engines were non-interference, but the ones from 1998 to 2010, including all of those in the 300Ms, were interference. So if the belt breaks, the engine could bend valves and you would be looking at a very expensive repair cost. The life of the water pump and timing belt are rated for about 100,000 miles, so it's recommended to change both or risk immediate failure, and that preventative maintenance itself is at least $1,000, and you got to do it every 100,000 miles of use. Oil sludging and breaking down is another fairly common occurrence on these engines, as there were undersized oil galley passages in the block, and an undersized PCV system that didn't pull enough air through the crankcase. The sludge can restrict oil passages that move oil around the engine, causing lower mileage failure due to spun crankshaft bearings or broken connecting rods. It's absolutely vital these owners change their vehicle every 3,000 miles, not the 7,500 mile intervals that Chrysler recommended, as well as frequently replace the PCV valve every 30,000 miles. Another major issue was the ticking or clicking noises from the top of the engine, accelerating with RPMs. I will say this seems to affect the later 3.5 engines more, after about 2005 or so, but there definitely were some 300Ms affected as well. Most call it a rocker arm tick that begins at startup and slowly lasts longer and longer until it's always there, and that's caused by a rocker dowel pin shearing off. These rocker arms are on a dowel, and over time the pin that keeps the rockers in place gets sheared or cut off. This will shift the dowel, and the rocker arms are no longer properly aligned, so the oiling holes in the rocker arms aren't in the proper spot, and therefore they're not getting the proper amount of oil. This lack of oil to the arms causes the noise. This is a pretty expensive repair as well, usually at least $1,200, with the dealer charging roughly 7 hours of labor along with all the parts needed. You need a new rocker arm assembly for both sides, and Chrysler actually quietly updated the part, making the dowels stronger and more durable over time. Rough idling and a drop in engine speed when the air conditioner goes on was also a common problem, requiring a cleaning of the throttle body and idle air controller. Coolant leaks and leaky head gaskets are common as well, along with intake manifold gasket issues. Chrysler designed this engine so that a coolant pipe runs under the intake manifold, but that can often rust from the inside out and leak coolant, and replacing the tube is labor intensive and time consuming, requiring you to remove the upper intake manifold and fuel injector rail. So that's the end of this video, guys. If you like this type of video, let me know down in the comment section below, and make sure to give some suggestions for what car I should do next. Do you love it? Do you hate it? And did you ever own one of these? Let me know. As always, thanks for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe for all your Mopar content, and I'll see you guys in the next video.